Okay, so let's take a look at human organs. And the way human organs work is an organ is a group of tissues. Okay, so we know that a group of cells make up tissues, and a group of tissues make up organs. Okay, so we did tissues already, and these are the four that we looked at: epithelial, connective, nervous, and muscle. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at the organs that these guys make up. Okay, so epithelial tissues make up skin. Okay, so the function of the skin is to protect the inner body from damage, disease, maintains inner body temperature, and releases fluids. Okay, all right, so so it protects the inner body, right? So for example, against viruses and stuff like that, you couldn't get, like, say for example, COVID by getting saliva on your skin, right? It had to get past your skin, right? So if you, I don't know, if you got it through your mouth or anything like that, that's different, but your skin protected you from that. Okay, so protects inner body from damage, disease, maintains inner body temperature, and releases fluids. Okay, so let's take a look at the parts. Okay, so the top layer is called the epidermis, and that's the protective, that's the top layer, right? So the skin that you're touching right now, if you touch your arm, your skin, that's the epidermis. Okay, and the epidermis creates vitamin D with sunlight. Okay, and vitamin D is important for bone development. Okay, now underneath the top layer of the skin, the fleshy part is called the dermis. Okay, so that's the inner layer consisting of, that's where all the muscles and nerves are. Okay, so just underneath the top layer, the epidermis is the dermis. Okay, so that's part D, right? This is this whole section right here. Okay, it has all the nerves, blood vessels, and stuff like that. Okay. Alright, so you'll see this little thing right here. I'll try to give you the same picture when we have a test. Okay, it's called muscle tissue. Okay, this right here. And this, the reason why that's in the skin is because it's a thing that causes you to shiver or gives you goosebumps when you're cold, right? So it's to prevent your body from getting too cold. Okay, alright. So then we have holes in your skin called pores. Okay, that's how sweat and oil comes out of, right? Okay, and you have little veins. So when the veins and the arteries are in the dermis level layer of your skin, they're thinner. They're smaller and thinner. They're called capillaries. Okay, so those are like basically the thinner arteries and veins, and that's where the gases, the oxygen, carbon dioxide, get exchanged between cells and the blood. Okay, alright, so those the veins and arteries are just underneath the dermis, but when you get to the dermis, you get the capillary. They turn into little thinner blood vessels called capillaries. Okay, this is a sweat gland, this purple one here, and the whole point of the sweat gland is to cool your body down when it gets too hot. Okay, so you have muscle tissue that causes you to shiver and stuff like that when you get too cold, and then you have sweat glands that prevent your body from getting too hot. Okay, so it uses up the heat of your body to evaporate the sweat. That's how it works. Okay, these black lines right here are nerve cells, and the whole point of nerve cells is to allow you to feel touch, okay, or senses. Okay, oops. Okay, alright, the last gland right here, just underneath your skin, is a sebaceous gland, and the whole point of the sebaceous gland is to release oil. Okay, so it secretes oil, which lubricates your skin and makes your skin waterproof. Okay. Alright, so those are the different parts of your of the skin. Okay. Remember, you could pause this video at any time to write down all the words if I'm going too fast. Okay, so let's take a look at the hardest one, the heart. Okay, so let's take a look. Okay, so don't worry about this. This is just a review. Okay, so let's look at the heart. Okay, so I usually give you a diagram of the heart with a note-taking sheet. So this is on your note-taking sheet. Okay, if you're in class. Okay, so we know, so what I want you to do is I want you to write veins here, and you'll see purple arrows and red arrows. Okay, so the whole point of the blue or the purple, the blue arrows is to show deoxygenated blood. So that's blood that has no oxygen in it, it has CO2 in it. Okay, so you can call it deoxygenated blood or CO2 blood. Okay, so there's two veins that lead to your heart. Okay, and the CO2 blood, the other name for that is called deoxygenated blood. Okay, so let me write that on the side. So CO2 blood, the other name for that is called Okay, so deoxygenated blood just means there's no oxygen in the blood. That's why it's not red. Okay. Alright, so let's take a look at the different parts now. Okay, so when the veins bring CO2 blood or deoxygenated blood to your heart, it enters this upper chamber. Okay, that upper chamber is called the atrium. Okay, so you have right and you have left atrium. Okay, so now you might say, well, this looks like it's the left side, not the right side. It's because you're supposed to be facing the other way. The heart is kind of like turned towards you. Okay, so that's why this is the right is really the left. Okay, so the right atrium right here, this is where the deoxygenated blood enters the heart. Okay, so you can write that part down. Okay, so that's atrium is where it collects the blood from the body. Okay, and then it goes into the second chamber, chamber 2, and that's the second pump. That pump right here that's the ventricle, and that pumps the deoxygenated blood to the lungs. Okay, so I'm going to just draw on some arrows just to show you. So let's draw some arrows. So I'll make this one blue so it matches. So what happens is it goes up here and it goes out two different vessels, blood vessels, to the heart. I mean to the lungs. Okay, so that's the direction. So it pumps blood to the lungs. Okay. Alright, so those are some arteries that pumps blood to the lungs. Okay. Then let's do the other part now. So that's the right side of the heart. Now the left side of the heart is where blood from the lungs, remember, so blood from the lungs has O2 in them. Alright, so blood turns red when it comes from the lungs because they've exchanged gases in the lungs. Okay, so we have O2 blood, red blood from the lungs. So it has oxygen in the lungs. It enters the atrium, but instead of the left atrium, the right atrium is called the left atrium. Okay, and so blood from the lungs enters these veins. Okay, and the oxygenated blood enters this chamber called the left atrium. And then from the left atrium, it gets pumped into the ventricles, the left ventricle. And then the oxygenated blood gets pumped into the aorta. Okay, so let's write that down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw an arrow showing red blood cells. Okay, so it goes this way. And what happens is it goes here behind this. So it's kind of twisted. Okay. Now the aorta is where all the arteries are connected to the heart. It's like where the exit is, right? So it's where red blood exits the heart. Okay, so and then from the aorta, the arteries are attached to it. Okay, so and that red blood right here is going to the body, right? Different parts of the body. Okay, all right. So put a little note. Okay, to the body. There we go. Okay, so I have a video of this, but I'm not going to show the video on the video. So if you want to see it, you can ask me in class. Well, let's do the last system. The last system is the respiratory system. Okay, the lungs. Okay, we'll talk about the lungs. Okay, so right up here is the larynx, and that's where the Adam's apple is. That's your voice box. Okay, that's how you make sound from your ear, right, when you speak. Okay, so that's the larynx. Then you have the windpipe, okay, that leads to your lungs. That's called the trachea. Alright, so it's the windpipe where gases flow to the lungs when you breathe in and when you breathe out. Okay. Now, when the trachea enters the lungs, they branch off into two branches. Those branches initially are called bronchi tubes. Okay, and these are two tubes that deliver gases into the lungs. Okay, now you see these bronchi tubes branch off into smaller tubes. Okay, so we call those bronchioles. Okay, they're really the bronchi tubes. All right, they're just smaller versions of the bronchi tubes. When they branch off. Okay. Now, at the end of these bronchioles, you'll see little sacs that kind of look like this. Right? You'll see little sacs. Okay, so this is my bronchiole right here, and you see little sacs. Okay, those sacs are called alveoli. Okay, now what the alveoli does is where the gases get exchanged between the blood and the air. Okay, so when you breathe in oxygen, okay, this is where the oxygen gets into your blood. So these you'll see these red and blue veins, okay, or arteries, okay, those are capillaries. Right, so capillaries are smaller versions of veins and arteries, and they hug the sacs. They surround the sacs, and between the sacs, the alveoli, and the capillaries, that's where the gases get exchanged. Okay, so here I have a little diagram right here showing at the bottom. So if that's that's the sac, the alveoli, the CO2 comes in, and then the O2 comes out, right into the blood. Okay, and this is my blood vessel, my capillary. Okay. Alright, last one is there's a muscle underneath your lungs called a diaphragm. Okay? And what the diaphragm does is a muscle underneath your lungs. Without it, you can't breathe, actually. Okay? What it does is it moves up or down. So it makes the lungs smaller when you breathe out. So it moves up when you breathe out, makes the lungs smaller. That's why you exhale. And when you need to breathe in, the diaphragm moves down. So it expands the lungs to get air into the lungs. Okay, so it's a muscle called the diaphragm that contracts. It moves it could squeeze move up, squeeze the lungs when you breathe out to push air out of your lungs, or it can move down, expanding the lungs so you can breathe in. Okay, so inhalation just means to breathe in. Expiration means to breathe out. Okay, so let me write that down. Okay, so. Okay, so when you breathe out, right, your lungs, your diaphragm moves up, compresses the lungs, makes it smaller, so that pushes the air out. And when you breathe in, the lungs get bigger, the diaphragm muscle moves down. Okay. Alright, don't worry about this diagram, this is just showing you the same thing. I'm not going to show this video online, but you can come in person and watch it, okay, if you want, okay? Alright, that's it for this lesson. Just check your Google Classroom for your homework.